I'm Toni Fein, and I'm delighted to read this book with you today. What do you think this book is going to be about? The title is Pumpkin Pumpkin, and the author and illustrator is Janine Titherington. Pumpkin Pumpkin. Have you seen pumpkins around lately? Maybe on a neighbor's front porch? Maybe on yours? Maybe as you're driving around town? There's starting to be quite a few pumpkins around, aren't there? What color are the pumpkins that you see? That's right. They're bright orange, aren't they? So pretty. I think that's why people like them for decorations, because they're such a pretty bright color. What do you see in this illustration? I see lots of great big leaves, and two geese, and a child. Is there anything orange in this picture? Can you see anything orange? And remember what color pumpkins are? Is there a pumpkin in this picture? Yes, it's a little surprising. He's sitting on a pumpkin. That's a great big pumpkin, isn't it? It looks like they're sitting in a garden. I wonder where these pumpkins come from. Where do pumpkins come from? Maybe you said the farmer's market, or maybe you said a grocery store. Sometimes we go to both of those places to find a pumpkin, but that's not really where they come from, is it? Where do pumpkins come from? Shall we see if this book tells us a little bit about that? That's a seed packet. When you want to plant a garden, you buy a packet of seeds. And it looks like, what do you think what kind of seeds might be in that packet? What's that a picture of? It's a pumpkin, isn't it? And you can see some seeds that have fallen out of the packet. I think those are pumpkin seeds. You could pick them up and hold them between your fingers. They're sort of flat. And they're about the size of your fingernail, maybe just a little bit bigger. Can you pinch your thumb and your forefinger together so you're holding a pumpkin? Yes. 1, 2, 3 pumpkin seeds. What do people do with seeds? This says, Jamie planted a pumpkin seed. And here he is holding the pumpkin seed in his fingers. Can you do that? Hold that pumpkin seed in your fingers. And there's a whole lot of soil there. I wonder if that's where he's going to plant it. Should we pretend to plant our seeds that we have? Let's do that. So here's the ground, and here's my pumpkin seed. And I need to make a little hole in the ground, poke a little hole in the ground. I've still got my seed poking a little hole in the ground. And then I push my seed down into the ground. Can you see the seed going down into the ground? It needs to go a few inches down. And then close up the hole and pat the soil on top of it. That seed is tucked safely in the soil underneath. There were 3 seeds. Shall we plant 2 more? Pick up the next seed and make a little different hole. Boop. Pat it down, and 1 more seed. Pick up the seed and tuck it in. Boop. There are 3 seeds. 1, 2, 3. Tucked under the soil and patted down where they can stay safe, and nobody will pester them. They need to be left alone for a little while so they can sprout. There's Jamie with one of the seeds that he planted, tucked it into the ground. And then you have to wait for a little while And be a little patient. It can take days, sometimes even a week before your seeds sprout. Jamie is watching to see his seed, if his seed has sprouted. And look what he sees. That's right. It's a tiny leaf coming up. His seed has sprouted. That's kind of exciting. So the seed that he tucked under the soil has sent a little leaf up into the air. In fact, it sent 2 little leaves up. The second one is hard to see because there's something sitting on that other leaf. Can you see what? It's a little red bug. I think it's a ladybug. Ladybugs are tiny, aren't they? So that must be a very tiny leaf if the ladybug is filling up the whole leaf. I bet Jamie's excited to see the sprout, though. It's exciting when seeds sprout. The pumpkin seed grew a pumpkin sprout. And the pumpkin sprout grew a pumpkin plant. Look at that. Those leaves have gotten much bigger. They used to be just tiny little leaves. And now they're almost as big as his hand, aren't they? They've gotten much bigger, and there are many more leaves. Jamie looks surprised. His mouth is open. Can you make a surprised mouth like Jamie? Do you think he's surprised about the plant? Or do you think he's surprised because a groundhog has peeked out of the pumpkin plant? I'd be surprised if a groundhog peeked its nose up and said, "Hello." I bet the groundhog is surprised to see Jamie, too. Can you say, like you're surprised to see a groundhog? That's right. So we have some leaves about the size of his hand. And the pumpkin plant grew a bit bigger. Look at that. Now these leaves are as big as Jamie's head. They're much bigger than his hand now. And there's the flower. It's a beautiful flower, isn't it? Bright orange like the pumpkin will be. And it looks like a little butterfly has found the flower as well. That's quite a big flower. It's almost as big as Jamie's hand, isn't it? Can you make a flower with your hand? It's like a cup-shaped flower. That's right. Quite big. And the butterfly has come to sip the nectar. Looks like Jamie saying, "Oh, a butterfly and a flower." Pumpkin flower is needed because you need a flower to start a pumpkin going. Oh, look. The pumpkin flower grew a pumpkin. Can you spot the pumpkin in this picture? It's a little bit tricky. You might think that the pumpkin is that it looks sort of orange, but it's a little more red than orange. And I'll give you a hint. Pumpkins are a little tricky. When they first start to grow, they're not orange. They're green. Can you see something that might look like a pumpkin starting to grow that's green? That's right. It's just little. It's about the size of the ball, isn't it? It would fit nicely in your hand. Can you hold that pumpkin in your hand? Yeah, just like that. The pumpkin flower was a big open cup, and now it's wilted a little bit. There's the flower on top. It's almost finished doing its work as a flower. So it's folding up. Pumpkin flower, pumpkin. There's an animal on this page too. It's very hard to see. Can you spot an animal? It's a very quiet animal. Do you see its eye? And its nose? And 2 long ears? I think there's a bunny hiding under the pumpkin plant. It's being very quiet. I don't know if Jamie knows that it's there. It's so quiet. It's a little secret, isn't it? And the pumpkin grew. It grew even more. Now it's as big as Jamie's head. I think he would take 2 hands to hold it. He'd need both hands, don't you think, to pick that up now? It's gotten so big. And Jamie is laughing as though something is tickling him. Do you think something might have hopped onto Jamie's head? What's that on Jamie's head? That's pretty funny, isn't it? A frog that was hiding under those big leaves hopped onto Jamie's head. I think he likes it. Would be fun to have a frog hop on your head. Hello, frog. We'll probably hop right off again. So the pumpkin is getting bigger and bigger. Now these leaves are almost as big as Jamie's shirt. That's a really big leaf, isn't it? And now it grew more. It's even bigger. Look at that. I think you couldn't carry that in your hands. You'd need to lift your arms up and wrap both arms around it to carry it now. It's so big. There's a grandpa in the garden. And it looks like someone has collected some green beans in a basket. Jamie's taken his shoes off and something has crawled into his shoe. Can you see what has crawled into his shoe? That's right. It's a little mouse. Oh, and the pumpkin grew some more. There's Jamie on the pumpkin. Oh my goodness, it's so big. That's the same picture that's on the front of the book, isn't it? It is a pumpkin that Jamie's sitting on. It's grown so big, it's as big as a chair. Jamie looks very happy. I would be too if I grew a pumpkin that was that big. Would that make you happy to grow a great big pumpkin? What do you think he's going to do next? What do you think he's going to do with that pumpkin? Look at that. He picked it. And he put it in a wagon. Do you think he could carry that by himself? That's so big. I wonder if he tried to pick it up. If he couldn't get it up, maybe he would call his grandfather to give him a little hand. Maybe. There's a pumpkin that's so big that he can't even carry it by himself. He needed help to put it in his wagon, I think. Where do you suppose he's taking it in his wagon? It looks like he's looking at a squirrel. What's that squirrel doing? He says, "Hello, squirrel. Look at this beautiful pumpkin that I've grown." That's Jamie saying to the squirrel, and the squirrel says, that is a beautiful pumpkin. I like to nibble on pumpkins sometimes. And Jamie says, "Nope, please don't nibble on my pumpkin. I want to look at my pumpkin. It's not food for a squirrel." Sometimes squirrels nibble on pumpkins when we leave them on the front porch. Oh, Jamie took the pumpkin home, it looks like. His dog is looking at it, and Jamie's giving it a big hug. He's really excited about that pumpkin. It says, "Then Jamie scooped the pumpkin pulp, cut the top off, and reached his hands in and scooped out the goo, the pumpkin pulp that's in the middle." Can you scoop out the pulp? Scoop, scoop. That's right. Scooping out the pulp. And then he carved a pumpkin face. Look, there's a smile and a nose and 2 eyes. It's a cheery looking pumpkin, isn't it? He carved a pumpkin face and he put his pumpkin in the window. But he did something else. What else do you think he did? He saved 6 pumpkin seeds for planting in the spring. So when he scooped out the pulp, he found seeds. There are lots of seeds in the pulp. And he squeezed 6 seeds out. Can you count with me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seeds that he pulled out. And he saved them for planting in the spring. You can't plant them in the wintertime. You have to wait till it starts to get warm again. But there are the seeds. He has 2 in his hands. 1, 2. There's another one. 3, 4, 5, and 6. That one's already planted. I guess that's what it's going to look like in the spring. Can you see what's happened with that seed? It's already sprouted. It's starting to grow a new pumpkin plant, isn't it? So he found those seeds in the big pumpkin that he grew, and he saved them. And in the spring, he put them in the ground to start a new pumpkin plant. That's a book called Pumpkin Pumpkin. And I think if someone asks you, where does a pumpkin come from? Now you'll be able to tell them. A pumpkin comes from pumpkin seeds. If you plant those seeds in the ground, a pumpkin plant will grow. And maybe you'll have a pumpkin when the plant has grown big enough. I hope you've enjoyed reading Pumpkin Pumpkin with me today. I look forward to reading a new story next week with you. Bye!